Innate is the body's first line of defense. It involves physical barriers like skin and mucous membranes, and these prevent the deeper penetration of microbes into the body. White blood cells are the main workhorses of innate immunity, in particular neutrophils and macrophages. We call these phagocytes. Phagocytes are cells that can actually engulf, digest, destroy, and then remove infected cells. And there are also natural killer cells. These can directly recognize and kill any infected cells. One important thing to point out is that we have our innate immune system is intact from birth. The response is immediate. You don't need to have met this particular virus before. But neutrophils themselves are very interesting cells to look at. They're the first line responders. They are the ones that destroy and ingest the invading microorganisms. And in the process, they increase inflammation. So you always got to remember that an active immune system is always generating inflammation. Interestingly enough, a healthy adult has to produce about 100 billion neutrophils daily. That itself depends on nutrition. They don't live very long. They come from the stem cells. It takes them about a week to mature into grown-up neutrophils. And many of them live very, very short lives, 2 to 3 hours. Now, they use what we call pattern recognition molecules to identify the invaders. The most common one, pattern recognition molecules, are called toll-like receptors. These are the sensors of the innate immune system. What they do is interesting. They can recognize a string of molecules that are commonly present on most microorganisms, but aren't present on our own cells. In other words, they can differentiate self from non-self. And so this induces the inflammation, and this is the first step in the immune response. And later on, you'll see how dependent that is on vitamin D. So adaptive, or also called acquired immunity, is reliant on different cells. The white cells called B lymphocytes or T lymphocytes. So B lymphocytes are the ones that produce antibodies. Now, what antibodies do is they will tag a virus and mark it for destruction. So this is a red flag if there's an antibody attached. The T lymphocytes are subdivided into a number of different types. T helper cells, these activate the immune cells. And then we have regulatory T cells, or Tregs. Now, if you learned your immunology a while ago, you would have called these suppressor cells, because what they do is they suppress immune responses. And then we have cytotoxic T cells that directly kill infected cells. So the B and T cells, they cooperate to control the immune response. The helper cells will facilitate the B cells producing their antibodies that leads to the destruction of the virus. And the regulatory T cells will block that activity to finish the immune response and draw a close under inflammation. So adaptive or acquired immunity we get through exposure to an organism or through vaccination. So looking at the B cells, on detecting a virus, a B cell binds to it. We have many different B cells. They have different receptors on their surface, and one or other of those B cells will recognize this new virus, bind to it, and become activated, helped by the T cells. So that the activation is the signal to start dividing and producing lots of more B cells. And there's a time lag to that because it takes a while to get the cells clonally developing. Most of the B cells will differentiate into what we call plasma cells, and these are the ones that make the antibodies, but a small selection will become memory cells. And these are long-lived cells that really provide a reservoir of cells that can recognize that virus from previous exposure and rapidly respond. So So they recognize that these are the cells that we want to induce through vaccination. This is just a schematic showing. Here's the B cells, all with different receptors on their surface. This one happens to have a receptor for the surface molecule on a virus or some other pathogen. This leads to triggering this to start dividing and producing all these daughter cells, clonal expansion. And most of the cells end up as plasma cells producing the antibodies. And here you have a few of these memory cells that are going to provide lasting immunity and a rapid response should future exposure occur.